Niger. The secretary, in his interview with, because it took place yesterday with the BBC, talked about Wagner potentially taking advantage. Can I just ask for clarification? Is he saying that he's seeing that happening right now, or is he warning against this happening in the future?
He was referring to the comments that Yevgeny Prigozhin made last week when he publicly, or last week or over the weekend, when he publicly was celebrating the events in Niger, and the fact that we certainly see Wagner take advantage of this type of situation whenever it occurs in Africa. We, as I've stated before, did not see any role by Wagner in the instigation of this attempted takeover, and we have not seen any Wagner military presence as of yet in Niger. I don't have any specific Wagner activities that I can make public at this point, but we saw Yevgeny Prigozhin publicly celebrating what's happened, and as I said, it did seem a very odd event that we had a bunch of Russian flags show up at so-called protests in support of the junta leaders.
Sure. Could I just, in this one follow-up?
So it's only the mysterious flag purchases that's the evidence that you're citing for...
I'm not citing any evidence other than what I just said, which is I think it's very strange that if your country is taken over by a military junta and you want to show your support, the way you decide to do that is by running out and buying at, I guess, a store locally, a Russian flag. That seems like an odd choice.
To follow on to that, some of the reporting from Niger, not to say that the innuendo that you're implying is it may be correct, but there's also possible that, based on some of the reporting, that there are some people in Niger who are leaning towards Russia because there's a historic dislike of France, particularly, and the US is grouped in with France. So I wondered, rather than this sort of suggestion that maybe the flags were bought by Russians or whatever it is there some concern that there could be actually legitimate or genuine feeling in the country of we would rather be aligned with the Russians because we've had a pretty bad experience with Western powers in the past?
Look, it is certainly a big country with a diversity of views. So I am not going to in any way try to stand here and speak for every citizen of that country. I will tell you that we, in our conversations with leaders of civil society and NGOs, including the conversations that Acting Deputy Secretary Nuland had yesterday, so we have heard support for a return to the constitutional order. And remember, it is the people of Niger themselves that that chose a democratically elected president that has now been placed under house arrest as a result of this junta. So I will say that and then add on top of that, as we've said before, look, anytime you see instability, or I shouldn't say anytime, but as we've seen before during instability in African countries, you have certainly seen Wagner try to take advantage of that. And even in the last few weeks, you've seen Yevgeny Prigozhin making public remarks trying to do the same thing here.
And just, sorry, one other thing. You mentioned that you still have some hope that things can be reversed. Is there, what's that hope based on? Is there any, from the Deputy Secretary's trip, is there anything you can point to as like this gave us hope? She didn't even get a meeting with the junta leader. So.
Look, we do still have hope, but we were also very realistic. And you heard her say yesterday that the conversations she had were very difficult. As I said in my first comments, we are realistic about the situation on the ground. We do have hope that the situation will be reversed. But at the same time, we are making clear, including in direct conversations with the junta leaders themselves, what the consequences are of failing to return to constitutional order.